Hey Kyle, thanks for coming on the show. It's lovely to have you on, and I've been super excited to talk to you about BPC and all the peptides that you're interested in and that you've been researching lots. But I really want to get started and have a chat about your story and how you came about all of these wonderful things and really leading it for Australia, I think. And that's why I'm super excited. I've tried the BPC that you have, and I felt almost immediate effects from 3 to 4 days in. So, and I explained that to you the other day when we quickly caught up. I'm so stoked that you're creating something like this and just having the awareness for us here. So I'll let you introduce yourself and give a little bit more backstory on how you got into all of this.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Jody. As I said to you earlier, I'm a big fan of your podcast, so it's quite an honor to be a guest on your show. And yeah, thanks for your kind words about the product and BPC. I'm glad you had a good effect, and it's definitely something a lot of people who've tried the product have noticed, how quickly it works, specifically for gut healing. But yeah, a bit about myself. I studied nutrition at La Trobe, so I'm a qualified nutritionist, but yeah, the degree sort of left me wanting a lot more by the time I was done. Mm-hmm. All of the stuff you speak about on your show and a lot of the books that I've sort of researched in my own time while I was studying the degree gave me a really good picture of what health is that the nutrition degree gave me nothing, unfortunately. So like peptides, for example, you just never were going to learn about anything like that in nutrition, nor would you probably learn about them in naturopathy, to be fair. But because they are so unique, but it's all the biohacking, it's all the health optimization medicine people, it's the functional medicine practitioners. They're the ones who you sort of learn these niche things from. So yeah, my backstory is obviously, as I said, nutritionist, but my family and I all sort of suffered a lot of health issues stemming back from probably 2010, sort of when my life got flipped upside down with my mum getting diagnosed with cancer. At the time, I was studying to be a graphic designer and did a complete 180 and decided I had to actually do something about it, because obviously the big C is such a scary thing, and seeing how it affected my mum and my whole family and aunties and uncles, I just hated feeling disempowered. And unfortunately, the conventional model kind of leaves you feeling disempowered, almost not deliberately, but it's how it is. There's like very little they tell you can do once you've got the diagnosis, and you just sort of just do the conventional treatments and hope for the best, really, is what they give you. The reason I went into nutrition was when we went down to Melbourne to see the oncologist, there was an oncology dietitian there. And I was like, wow, that's an awesome career. I'd love to be able to do that and help people out. So I decided to start studying nutrition, and yeah, did everything we could nutritionally to try and help my mum. We did all the green smoothies, all the antioxidants, all the blueberries, the kale. We just threw everything in this great big green smoothie, which in hindsight, when you learn, none of it was organic, and the flaxseed oil was probably rancid and all these little things. But we did really get good results with her breast cancer. All of like the green tea extracts and resveratrol, all these supplements, we just threw everything at it in sort of like a shotgun approach, because I hadn't done enough learning at that point. And just anything that I found that could help, we sort of would give to mum and sort of hope for the best. And we actually did have really good results towards the end when I sort of refined my knowledge and started learning about different diets, whether it be ketogenic diets or plant-based diets. Everyone's sort of different, but ketogenic diet was the one that really helped mum, and that sort of led us to learn a bit about Thomas Seyfried and the work of Dominic D'Agostino, where they combine the ketogenic diets with the hyperbaric. And that, of course, led me to Scott Schur when I learned about hyperbaric oxygen and, yeah, the Home Hope model. So that's how we actually connected, you and I. I looked up Home Hope and there you were. And I thought, oh, well, this is my person here. Need to connect.
Absolutely. Super exciting.
So I promise we'll loop back to the peptides eventually, but having done hyperbaric oxygen for mum at the clinic, when I finished my degree, that was my first job after graduating, was working as a hyperbaric oxygen technician at the clinic in Melbourne. And the clinic was great. The practitioner who ran it taught me a lot and taught me a lot of things about holistic health. He was a chiropractor himself, so he didn't have a great knowledge of everything, but he'd been around long enough that we learn about a lot of the things that you don't get taught in your degrees, and learn about things like methylene blue and NAD and hypothermia, sauna, all that sort of stuff. So that was a really good job, but it was kind of, I felt like I didn't have the tools to help these people as a nutritionist and a hyperbaric oxygen technician. I was sort of very limited in my scope. So that sort of led me to naturopathy and natural medicine. And first day at Endeavour, naturopathic philosophies, I sort of had a tear in my eye when I was walking home, learning about the principles of naturopathic medicine. And I just knew I found the right thing for me, and it was a really good moment. And that's how I got into naturopathy.
Gave me shivers then.
But it was the previous job at the Hyperbaric Oxygen Center where I was first learned about peptides. Not obviously, but the clinic, a lot of people who were attending were using alternative and therapies that weren't really all that well known in Australia. Opposite on the other side of the road was a compounding chemist, and they did all the peptides that were available on a script for people. And we also had a doctor who would come in once a week and actually administer peptides for cancer patients. So using things like thymosin alpha-1 and LL37, there's like a long list of peptides that can actually help boost the immune system and have some anti-cancer effects. So that's sort of where I was exposed to peptides. And BPC is one that majority of people who came through the clinic were actually interested in using, because it's pleiotropic. It's got so many differing effects on the body. Naturopathically, we're taught all disease begins in the gut. I think I might have misquoted it a little bit, but that's old mate Hippocrates quote. And BPC, having, like, as you've experienced yourself, having such a really powerful impact on the gut, was just like a no-brainer. When I tried it, I got it from that compounding place. It was highly expensive. It was like, for 30 capsules, $280 or something like that.
Wow.
And yeah, they were basically the only people doing it. And there was one supplement company that used to do it in Australia, but they've since stopped doing it. I think they got in a lot of trouble because they were selling other stuff like SARMs, which are scheduled and illegal. So that sort of left a complete gap in the marketplace for someone to start producing it. And that's where I got the opportunity to start producing it.
Amazing.
So the BPC is the main product we sell with my company, LVLUP Health. I started that this year. Just as the lockdowns began, I lost my job at the health food store. So I'm like, damn, I got to do something. And, I'd known about it, and we just started producing it. Started a really small scale. I think our first production run was 20 units, and we're sort of questioning whether we're even going to be able to sell them. Now over 1,000 orders later, we're doing very well and helping lots of people with the peptides. So that's amazing. Sort of, and a very abridged version of how we got into peptides and natural health.
You're worried about making that story too long, but I think you did fantastic, Kyal. That's awesome.
Definitely the abridged version, I promise you.
I think so many businesses are going to be born out of this viral issue at the moment that we've got. So I think it's a blessing for a lot of people. And I think even for you, that seems like it was the pusher to get you going into it. So I wanted to
silver linings to everything.
Absolutely. So I wanted to get back into you've had an amazing start, to be straight into a hyperbaric clinic and to have exposure into all of these types of things has really given you kind of that insight and forefront into what is a possibility for people. And that's what excited me so much. Once, I've been teaching for many years, I've been in clinic for many years, and then hearing some of these new things that I thought were new come out, or even just being exposed, it just gets this real bubbly, like, excitedness in your stomach, just thinking about the possibilities of what we've got available to us and what not yet been discovered. So the first time I'd heard about peptides was many years ago, but it was so out of reach in Australia, and it's much more an intramuscular, injectable form that was available. So then when I found out about the capsules, I thought, oh, this is very interesting. I love it. So for those who are out there who don't know what BPC is, could we go through a little bit more detail about actions or possibility of actions in the body, where it can help? And then I also wanted to touch a little bit about the environmental stuff that was going on for you. And I know you have a little bit of a story surrounding EMF as well as mold. So maybe touch on that, because we know how important all those are for cell and also gut function.
Cool. All right. A little bit to unpack there. I'll start with peptides and BPC.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, BPC I first started taking because of the environmental exposures. I believe that I suffered a lot of damage living in a house that was 50 meters away from a 4G cell phone mast tower. Using all the technologies to test it, the levels were actually maxing out the meters. We didn't have the most expensive meters, but it was orders of magnitude beyond what they classify as safe. So my sleep went to absolute garbage. My sister had issues with tingling and brain fog. I had the brain fog as well. Hypoxia. I passed out multiple times in the house. Mum, actually, with her cancer, to loop back to that, she put her primary breast cancer with metastatic disease in the bones into remission using the therapies, all the hyperbaric, the intravenous vitamin C therapies. So yeah, when she got it into remission, we kind of celebrated and bought a new house. It was right opposite a lake, but really close to that tower. And she ended up within 6 months. I believe 6 months is accelerated for most people if they are at risk of getting something like that. Because of the amount of disease burden she had fought, and she's obviously very depleted from the treatments that they did. Within 6 months, she developed primary brain cancer from living so close and sleeping directly in the line of sight of the tower. So yeah, that really shook the foundations of my life. And every time that something goes wrong, I try to be a bit of a detective and figure out how the hell it happened. Initially with her breast cancer, I put it down to her growing up in rural Victoria in Horsham, where there's a lot of pesticide use. And all of the strategies were targeted towards fixing the mitochondria, detoxifying glyphosate, getting rid of heavy metals, all that sort of stuff. But the EMF one, I'd heard about it in a lot of the books that I'd been reading, but never really wanted to dive deep into it because I was a self-confessed technology addict. I had the Wi-Fi router close to my room deliberately so I could have good signal on my computer, and I'm connected to the computer all the time. That's where a majority of my knowledge has come from the internet, from listening to people talk. So to find out that the tool that's given you all these gifts is also a double-edged sword was pretty confronting. But I couldn't deny the health effects that my family went through, and me personally, and especially mum went through. So yeah, EMFs, that's why I took the BPC to try and mitigate it to some extent. Methylene blue was another fantastic supplement that really helped because of the nitric oxide modulating effects. And Clonia cava was another seaweed that we used. Everything that we were doing in that house was pretty much palliative mitigation to try and just stem the damage that was occurring to our bodies because of the exposure. So BPC was one that we had to, I felt like I had to use because it was one of the things keeping me from drowning, keeping me above water. And definitely noticed a difference pretty much immediately when using it. Brain fog lifted quite substantially. I went through a huge amount of brain fog to the point where I couldn't construct a sentence. It was proper adrenal fatigue, which led to thyroid issues, which led to, stomach acid issues and gut issues. And it wasn't until the gut issues came up that the BPC sort of came on the radar, and it just sort of fixed all these systems for me. So yeah, how some of the main ones? Yeah, EMF exposure, obviously, as you've discussed with Nicole, is a huge factor. But so how BPC actually works, we took it orally, and we make it orally as in a capsule. And traditionally, it's not traditional by any means, it's a synthetic peptide, but usually people will inject BPC. That's how it's usually been administered throughout the last 10 to 15 years, as long as it's been used.
That's right.
And they will use, like, there's three main forms of BPC, and that the one that they inject is called BPC acetate. If you were to take that orally, only about 20% of it is absorbed beyond the stomach. So it's not very effective. It is effective to a small extent, but usually the stomach acid, it'll break it down, and it won't be able to have a systemic effect. There's also a sodium BPC, which again, I think is even worse than the acetate form. So pretty much useless beyond just helping heal stomach ulcers. But the form we use is called BPC arginine salt form, and that has a 90% bioavailability rate. So it'll bypass the stomach acid, be able to go systemic through your GI tract and really help with IBS, IBD, reflux, anything within the gastrointestinal tract. So even your bowel diseases, colitis and Crohn's, it's currently in trials for those disease processes to try and sort of heal the damage that those processes cause. There's a lot of mechanisms to it. It releases growth factors like EGF, VEGF, NGF, like all these growth factors basically accelerate the healing process of the body. So in the gut, the oral tablet is profound because it's going exactly where it's needed through the gastrointestinal tract. Some people who have like a sports injury, they might benefit greater from an injectable if they can inject it themselves and don't have an issue with that. They can do that, but you can also benefit from oral capsules, provided your gut's not a complete mess, because the BPC, the peptide itself, is actually a smart peptide. It'll go where the inflammation is. So if you're taking BPC, like a lot of our clients have, and they're hoping to fix like a shoulder issue or carpal tunnel or something, but their gut's a complete mess, then triage, it's going to be prioritized in the gut before it's going to do anything for your shoulder or your carpal tunnel. So yeah, that's an abridged version of BPC. There's so many mechanisms to how it works. I think I'll link you to a few articles on it, because I could go off on a tangent for probably half an hour on all the mechanisms and pathways of how it works. But basically, it's just new blood vessel formation. To really oversimplify it, the angiogenesis process really just helps with that delivery of nutrients and oxygen and the removal of the metabolic waste. So that's sort of really key to helping the healing process. Similarly to hyperbaric oxygen, like that really helps deliver oxygen and nutrients better and pushes out the waste. It's very similar and synergistic with therapies like that, or even your pulsed electromagnetic frequency, PEMF therapies. They all work on oxygenation and waste elimination. And BPC definitely is a good one.
Amazing. Sounds like a really good stack. You could have the methylene blue, you could have the BPC, you could have the hyperbaric chambers, you could have the red light therapies and the PEMF, and you're sweet sailing from there.
Sounds like a good clinic, Jodie. You'll have to start it up.
Maybe working on something, who knows. All right, so yeah, normally subcutaneous is the way that these peptides have been delivered, as you say, and that's sort of the hardest way to get them still in Australia. Still need to have doctor's prescription, things like that. With the oral form, it gives a little bit more leeway for people to access it from the home, which is fantastic. So give me a little bit more of a detail about what else you've put in those products, because I know you've got two, am I correct? Two on the market at the moment.
Yep, two peptide products, yep.
Yep, and so they've both got the BPC, but they're a little bit different. So explain both of those to me.
The first formulation is called Regenerate. That has 500 micrograms. See, peptides are so effective, you don't even need a milligram. It's half a microgram. So yeah, that one is combined with palmitoyl ethanolamide, or PEA, which in and of itself is a fantastic supplement, similarly to curcumin and CBD oil. So that one was made for the purpose of injury recovery and sort of helping people with like tendonitis or recovering from a surgery, because the PEA is going to provide short-term pain relief, also being an anti-inflammatory, and then the BPC is going to be working on the actual injury site, trying to repair that. The second product, which I just released maybe a month ago, is called Ultimate GI Repair, because I found basically every ingredient that I could for gut healing that I could fit into a capsule. I did. There's ones like your glutamines and all of your mucolytics and oligosaccharides that you need gram amounts, so it doesn't make sense to try and combine them. And I think they have their own place alongside BPC. But yeah, the BPC is higher dose in the GI repair. Mm-hmm. And I also combine it with another peptide that I don't think anyone else has used before. It's called Larazotide Acetate. Mm-hmm. And this one is a Zonulin antagonist, which for practitioners, they're probably going to pick their ears a little bit. Yep. For other people who aren't aware what Zonulin is, this is a little protein made that basically our body makes it in response to things like glyphosate or gluten. And there's other dietary factors that basically make the creation of Zonulin, which will open up our tight junctions in our gut, which can lead, with excessive amounts, can lead to leaky gut. So if we can block if someone has high levels of Zonulin, Larazotide and BPC together are going to be a really good 1-2 punch to seal up that leaky gut, prevent all the lipopolysaccharide and bacteria and all the large molecules from getting into circulation and causing systemic inflammation. We combine it with a lot of the natural products that have already been well studied, like quercetin to sort of stabilize mast cells, zinc carnosine, which again by itself is a great product. I find it's a bit underdosed in Australian products, so I've really gone quite heavy with the dose of zinc carnosine in that. And yeah, what's the final one? Tributyrin, which is a novel form of butyrate. It's really highly bioavailable, and the butyrate's just a fuel source for your enterocytes, for your GI, the cells of your GI tract. So you've got the two peptides that'll sort of work on the growth factors to sort of get it to heal. You've got the quercetin to stabilize all the mast cells, and histamine, which can contribute to leaky gut. Zinc carnosine, again, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and great nutrient for the gut, for the gut lining. The tributyrin, again, as I just said, a great fuel source for the gut lining. So I think it's a really good combination product, and I hope it helps a lot of people because I've only just made it. And yeah, we'll see how it goes with client feedback.
Amazing. I'm, for one, super excited. I spend most of my days talking about Zonulin and talking about closing up those tight junctions. So to hear something that can have a big impact. And I think the most powerful thing to remember here is with the peptides, and we hear it more so for the injectable size, but this is also true, is that peptides are very fast acting. Am I right? And so you can have, all the glutamine and other supplements that do help, but it does take a lot longer. So we're looking at a lot quicker turnaround for recovery for certain issues with people with the peptides. Mm-hmm. And that's what excites me so much, with very reduced, if any, side effects. Am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like Dr. Ted talks about, 10-cent solutions or 1-cent solutions to a complex problem. BPC and peptides like these are going to really fast track any sort of gut healing. You definitely don't need these products to heal the gut. Your diet just needs to be perfect. If you're going to take nutritional supplements, you realistically are expecting minimum of 2 months on the protocol to start getting the results that you're after. But a lot of the results, like we've had people who take it in 2 days after use, they're completely off the antacid medication they might have needed for their reflux. Mm-hmm. Their bloating's completely gone within a week. It's crazy how quickly these act, and it's amazing that they act that quickly. I'm so happy they do, because it's really great for getting the product out there. People are definitely wanting something that acts really quickly. That's sort of society at the moment. Yeah. And yeah, thank goodness BPC provides that for people, because yeah, it's very expensive. So you kind of really want it to work. Yeah. That's something I do need to address with it. The price point on it's well over $100. And that's because the peptides to make, you need an amino acid sequencer, and that device is it's very hard to find them. A lot of manufacturers don't actually have them. They're well in excess of $1 million just for that piece of equipment. And to produce it, it's 18 times the price of gold per gram. That's how much the peptides cost. So there's a reason the price is high. I'm not trying to extract heaps of money out of people. It's just realistic. That's how much they are in Australia. And compared to compounding, it's a lot cheaper still.
Yeah, I don't think it's that high at all, to tell you the truth. When you consider things like CBD, even though it's not allowed to be sold in Australia, when you if you do and when you do access that sort of stuff, you're looking at a huge high price point as well. So I don't think it's excessive at all, personally. And there's a lot more expensive supplements that are just that, supplements and not peptides. That are, liposomal form, and the formulations of those makes them a little bit more expensive. So I don't think people need to be turned off by the over 100 price point at all. Super, super exciting. That's why I wanted to do this super quick with you, because I was like, I really want to get this information out there for people to start to investigate, to start to think about, and to start to know about, because it is very, very unique on the market, that what you've created. And because of your amazing story and what you've been experiencing, which is horrible, but it's taught you so much at the same time. And it's just incredible, Kyal. I'm in awe of how you've taken this to the next level to help others. And you in just doing that are going to be an incredible practitioner and very, very successful. And I can say that right from the start. So it's going to be an honor to join you and watch you grow and to become very, very successful in all of this, just because you've got a heart of gold.
Thank you so much. It means the world to me to hear that, actually.
No, I think you need to hear it more often, for sure. So what's next now for Level Up? Tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking, what's sort of going to be coming up next, where you're moving forward.
Yeah, well, I kind of always want to make peptides the core of any products I have in the future. I think it's, as we've mentioned, it's new, it's an untapped market, and they're so powerful. So I'm looking at doing some topical stuff for like copper peptide for like a skincare thing. There's maybe 6 or 7 peptides you can use for hair regrowth. Got that, definitely a few formulations for that in the works at the moment. And even getting away from peptides, I find the Australian market is a little bit uninspiring. And I know that's a lot to do with the TGA, what you can and can't use, but I just have some great ideas for like hormonal balancing formulations, detoxification formulations using things like NAC and TUDCA and all these other ingredients that you don't have in the Australian marketplace yet. I really want to bring those out. And personally, I can't wait to be a practitioner myself. Like, this supplement business it's not what I ever thought I was going to get into. It was sort of came out of necessity because I wanted BPC. My friends wanted BPC and nobody was doing it. So I'm like, stuff it, I'll do it. The opportunity presented itself. So I'm like, yeah, all right, that sounds good. But ultimately I'd love to own a clinic one day that has all the things that we're talking about, the red light therapies, the hyperbaric oxygen, PEMF, and really somewhere that can give hope to someone like my mum or like my family members who all have incurable chronic disease. Hope is such a powerful thing to have. And genuinely, I think that hope is what kept mum going for so long, despite the terrible prognosis early on. Like, she survived 8 years with stage 4 cancer, which that's not very common. And everything we did, all of the out of the box things that we did were what got her so many extra years. So the joy that I had, the extra time that I had with my mum, I want to ultimately have it so other people can have this and take it the next step further. Like, I'm not content with just helping people get a few extra years. It's my life mission to try and cure these things that, we're told are incurable. And I think peptides are going to be a huge tool for us to do that. Like some of the anti-cancer peptides that we can discuss in a future podcast when I've done a bit more preparation for them. They're just fascinating, and doctors are using them in Australia. I went to quite a few conferences earlier this year and last year, and there are some really good integrative doctors who are using these peptides. They're sort of putting their own career at risk by doing so, because if APRA or some of these associations find out that they're using them, it's not just a little slap on the wrist for these people, but they are getting fantastic results with them. I will say quickly, because we've talked about cancer quite a lot, BPC is contraindicated for cancer because it induces angiogenesis, which is one of the hallmarks of cancer. So if you have had a surgery and you have the all clear, that you don't have any active cancer, then it can be great for recovering from surgeries or, reconstructive surgery. It can really help speed up the recovery time. But with someone with active cancer, it's probably a no-go. I couldn't ethically say that you should use it, and it would be irresponsible to say to use it, despite the fact that it's going to reduce systemic inflammation by healing the gut. There's a lot of benefits to it, but it's just not really worth the risk at this stage, especially when there's other peptides you could look into.
Okay. Yeah, as I think that's a good aside. And you brought me back from tears. So you had me very choked up there for a minute. I think it's too much of a good thing to ignore. And like you say, the doctors out there, they're putting their careers at risk because of the fact that they see it being so successful, and they can't not talk about it, or they can't not learn about it and speak about it. So I think it's something that's going to be coming out of the woodworks, and something that hopefully is going to become more available in the Australian market and across the world, as with things like CBD and cannabis, alongside those sorts of therapies that we're learning that they're really, really beneficial. So,
yeah, all the peptides are in this grey area where most of them aren't patentable because they're naturally found somewhere in the body, like thymosin. That's one for hair regrowth. It's one for the immune system. It's found in the thymus gland in trace amounts. BPC is naturally made by your stomach acid. You can't patent something your body already makes. Yep. So if you could, these pharmaceutical companies probably would have swooped on them already and be charging $500 a serve or something like that. They would be making really good money, but it's not patentable. So they're not interested in it. Conversely, natural health practitioners, some see it as synthetic, see it as something made in a lab, and then they don't want to use it because it's it's a grey area thing. Like, it's not natural, so why would you use it? A lot of people might have this dogma. I don't think anyone should really subscribe to dogma of any type, be that allopathic or alternative therapy doctors. Use what works, use what's safe. And that's another thing too. The safety profile on these is amazing. They've never actually been able to find a lethal, the LD50 on this is, I think it's 125 grams, I think was what I found, which is about 2,500 times the supplemental dose. So the therapeutic window on it is huge. And it doesn't interact with medication because it's broken down in circulation by hydrolyzed enzymes. So it's not going to mess around with liver enzymes and stuff like that. So the safety profile on it is amazing. Compared to placebo, it had fewer side effects when they studied it in animals and humans. But big disclaimer, it is a research chemical. If you buy it, you do sort of at your own, not at risk, because I don't think there's much risk, but just beware that majority, 90% of the studies are on animals. They have been used around the world, and there's plenty of anecdotal evidence of their effectiveness, but the studies are slowly coming in for humans, and it's very hard to find the funding, as we know with natural medicine. Who's going to spend multi-million dollars funding a study on a compound that they can't patent? So it's very hard for these things to get through. Croatia is where most of the studies come from, and they were done in the 90s. So there's a rumor going around that most of the studies were done on humans first. Most of the effects of BPC were found on humans. And then when they went to publish it, they were asked to show their animal research first, and they just never did it. So they weren't actually allowed to publish it. So they've gone completely back, started doing the animal studies again, finally started publishing them, and have gone full circle 15 years later and have finally got back onto the human studies that they did ages ago in Croatia. So yeah, it's very interesting. Incredible. It's got quite a good story, this peptide.
Oh, it does. It does. And I think that's even more so the magic of it. Wow. So all of that, I think what you said is so true. And I think it's really important to be saying those sorts of things in regards to the research and the funding that's available, and any in regard to dogma. And I think I'm a big one and a big believer in what you've just said, Ben, is that whatever works, whatever's safe, and things change constantly. And it doesn't have to be, our form of natural, what is that really? Because all the supplements that we use are, isolated and made in labs, and a lot of them, except for the herbs and some of those other things. So I think people need to have information correct, and also within those boundaries, they need to know what is natural and what they actually subscribe to. So it's a big it's a big a qualm of mine, that I think that people, if they think, oh, it's not natural, like you got to really consider the information that you're seeing in front of you. So thank you for saying that, because I think that definitely needs to be said more.
No
Amazing. Kyal, tell me where to find more information about you. Tell me where to find more information about Level Up and these products. And I think people here will be seeing much more from me about them as well coming up soon. So give me a bit of a rundown of all of that, where to find you.
Yeah, well, the business has only been going for about 5 months, so I don't have all that much content out there. My website's LVLUP, LVLUP health.com.au. I've written quite a comprehensive, well-referenced research piece on BPC. So take everything I say with a grain of salt until you've researched it yourself. That's what I encourage people to do. Don't just listen to some guru or some expert. Look into it yourself. Every study that I could find is on there for complete access. So if you really have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer any on either Level Up Health's Instagram, or you can email me and from the Level Up Health page. The Instagram's where I'll probably be sharing most of my research and information on, just because of the way the world is at the moment. Exactly. It's a great way to reach lots of people. But yeah, those are basically the 2 places you can find me. And hopefully in the future I'll have a lot more information out once I've been going at it a bit longer and get a little bit of help with some friends who are all on the same mission as I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really, really excited to see what you're also going to be bringing out, and the information that you've finding out, getting out there and telling people all about. So thank you. Well done. Amazing work. Super excited about all of that. Can't wait to speak to you again. And we'll definitely have another podcast with you with some updates and some, I would say in a couple of months, let's get together again and have another recording, because I would love to hear about even stories and what you've heard anecdotally, or, from clients or from people that you've been supplying these products to, and some of their stories. That would be really interesting too.
Sounds great, Jody. Thanks. I'll try and deflate my head after today's talk. It's been really nice.
No need to.
Chatting again.
All right, amazing. We'll chat to you soon, Kyal.
All right. Thanks, Jody. See ya.